But it's all down to fate, isn't it? Because a football fan can support a club who've got good owners, who've got really good owners, who've got owners that sink the place out. Or, if you're Aston Villa, you're lucky enough to be owned by Sawiras and Edens, correct me if I'm wrong, who are superb owners. But it's a matter of fate, isn't it?
It's a really interesting question. And there is a lot of truth in what you say, because good owners can become bad owners. We have brilliant owners. And I would suggest that when Tracy is talking about what's called the owners and directors test, this is the mechanism whereby currently the Premier League, for a Premier League takeover, or the EFL in their league, attempt to form a view on a buyer before they actually buy a football club. And this test is much criticised and is the subject of lots of jokes in football over the years. That it's often seemed as though almost anyone could buy a football club.
That's right. Yeah.
But I having been in that position a few times now in football, it's not easy, because what looks good on paper may not turn out to be good in practice, and a good owner ab initio. So I hope I don't offend anybody but saying this, but I think if the owner and directors test had been applied to Mel Morris at Derby several years ago, he would have ticked every box under the sun. He made nearly £1 billion in his own career in the technology industry, was from the area, Derby, and chose, having sold that company for hundreds of millions of pounds, to buy his local football club that was, at a low point in its fortunes, and try to take that club on a journey back to his historic position at the top of the league. He would have passed every single test with flying colours, and was a well-intentioned, highly capable, good man buying his local club, rather than sitting on his yacht spending his 500 million quid, spending it on his local football team. No football fan in England would complain of anything about that. Did he become a bad guy because it didn't quite work out? He gambled. He made some decisions he probably regrets now. It's not because he's a bad guy. It's not because he's an idiot. He's proven he's not an idiot. He made £500 million in the technology industry. But it's difficult. Sport contains inherent risk, inherent uncertainty. So I would say, sort of be careful what you wish for here. It's not when you're selling a football club like Bury, it's not selling Man United. There aren't a queue of global billionaires trying to buy Bury. By definition, it's going to be a narrower pool of people, probably with some local connection, certainly with less money, and scrutinising whether they've actually, got the smarts, got the money, going to stick by it when they have a few bad results is not easy.
Right. Yeah.
And so I feel,
I
listen,
see you nodding at everything Christian's saying.
And Simon, I think, let's be clear, we are so blessed. Fans see me in the street and get the joke that Aston Villa, couldn't pay a £4 million tax bill after the playoff final, is going to be put into administration, and miraculously two owners who would pass every test with flying colours, Western, international, credible investors who were in sport. What a fantastically fortuitous moment in the history of Aston Villa Football Club, and I'm convinced they'll be great owners for many, many, many years. But there are lots of people who were good owners who ran out of love, ran out of money, ran out with patience, and suddenly they're billed as bad owners, and that might be a bit unfair.
Right, Christian, I know you've got business to do in London, but I'm not going to let you out of the building without asking you this. Newcastle, the Saudis took it over. Should states own football clubs? What's the view at Villa? What's your view?
Oh, these are good questions. Listen, I think a couple of things. We already have a de facto state owning a Premier League club in terms of Abu Dhabi's ownership of Manchester City. We have the same in France with Qatar's ownership of Paris Saint-Germain. Two things on Newcastle and Saudi Arabia. We elect politicians to formulate domestic and foreign policy. The foreign policy of the United Kingdom is that Saudi Arabia is an ally and a significant trading partner, and we do huge amounts of business with them. And I'm sure there've been moments, given some of the stuff that's happened in that country in the last few years, where the government have been slightly embarrassed by that stance, but that is the official foreign policy of this country. So the idea that one private company in football would take a stance at odds with the stance of our government, I think is fanciful. Whether that's a regulator, whether that's the CEO of the Premier League, whether that's a group of Premier Leagues trying to stop it. It's just not the policy of this country.
All right. Are you uncomfortable with them in there?
Look, I'm very, as a citizen, everything and anything around recent events in Saudi Arabia does make me uncomfortable. But I don't think on the narrow question of buying and selling football clubs that we can expect the football industry to take a unique stance against the rest of the country. What I would say is, with states owning football clubs, which was your supplementary question, the challenge is to regulate that with much, much more effectiveness than we've seen done. Nobody in the game seriously thinks that Paris Saint-Germain have been properly regulated in terms of maintaining competitive balance in France. And a lot of people in this country would look at Manchester City's development and rapid development and question whether that has been effectively regulated.
Are you worried that Newcastle, because of this untold wealth, is going to end up dwarfing you and all the others?
Listen, I know the new owner of Newcastle very well. I believe that they have good intentions in respect of the rules. It's in the public domain. It's out there. I can confirm that deal probably has been a catalyst to revisit a long overdue revisiting of the financial regulations, in particular those regulations that deal with owners using related parties, associates, businesses they're close to inflate their sponsorship income to try and get through the financial fair play rules. Those rules are right now being broadened, tightened, modernised. That's a really good thing for the league.
But it's all too late for Gary Hoffman, isn't it? Did the Premier League chairman Gary Hoffman lose his job because of it?
I think Gary resigned last week. He's done a terrific job in an incredibly difficult time. This guy arrived in the league, and within 5 minutes of arriving, we had the COVID-related shutdown. We had massive discussions with our broadcasters about giving money back to them. We then had the European Super League land on his watch. And then ultimately the Newcastle takeover. I mean, that is a series of events on your first year in charge that would challenge anybody. And I think it's exhausting.
Yeah, but Christian, did the Newcastle takeover do for him?
I think it was probably the culmination of a whole range of matters that, owners... Listen, the Premier League is often misunderstood. It's not Shell Oil. It's a private company with 20 owners. One club, one vote, 20 clubs each own 5%. Keeping those 20 clubs, or technically 14 of them, happy at any one time is not an easy job for anybody. And all 20
Imagine keeping him happy when he was at Palace.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what, Simon? Tell me if you agree with this. It goes right back to the start of the show, and it's a good way to end.
Go on.
Okay, it's a good way to end. We're talking about management, governance, running football. I often say this. In the Premier League, your listeners will know that to change anything, to bring in any new rule, needs 14 out of those 20 clubs to agree. Now, I could go through with you right now, the 20 people running those clubs, I know all of them. Most of them have been in the game a very long time. They're all from very different backgrounds, but they've all seen everything in football. If you get those 14 people to agree on something, let alone 15, 16 or 20, that's a pretty high bar and a pretty good test that it makes sense. And that is not given the credit it deserves as a system of self-regulation and governance. And I'm proud of it. And oftentimes 20 clubs agree with wildly different interests at the start, but through a process of discussion, analysis, discussion again, and ultimately agreement, that's the way our league works. And I think at the centre of English football, that's a really good check and balance on good decisions.
Fair enough. And let's finish where we started. Are you all agreed in the Premier League that the Tracy Crouch review, you're virtually kicking it into touch?
You love your headlines, don't you? And I'm not going to give you a headline. I've said everything I've got to say. I think it's an incredible piece of work. It's timely. I'm grateful for it. Lots of the issues needed to be ventilated, but it's the start, not the end. It begins a process of consultation and discussion, and the Premier League will be at the heart of those discussions because it's at the heart of football. You're
saying leave it to us. We don't need a regulator. Leave it to us. What, have you gone, Christian? I thought you were still here.
See you later, Jim.
Christian Purslow, want to thank you so much. Simon, I'm sure you'd agree.
Well done, Christian.
Chief Executive of Aston Villa, Christian Purslow. From the many, many messages I see, Christian, you're getting the thumbs up.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.